Hi there, folks. Saber4 here. I'm going to talk a bit today about the Legends of the Force Legendary rankings, and just kind of this is where I have them. We'll also do a discussion about the data dump and the couple of things that have happened over the last few days. So since we have all the cards now, it's a good time to go ahead and start looking at them and looking at where they stack up here about a month or so before we get our new release. So let's go ahead and dive into it. What you're going to see in this video, we'll talk about the data dump. We'll talk about kind of some thoughts on data leaks and a tale of a championship. We'll look at the legendary ranking in Star Wars Unlimited, and then we will look at the rankings of the cards. If you have not already, please subscribe to the channel. Really helps out with reach a ton. Would love to see that subscriber count continue going up. We're a little bit over 900 right now. Would like to have our next goal of 1,000 if we can very soon, and hopefully we can do that by the time Legends of the Force really kind of takes off. So let's go ahead and dive on in. As we know, we kind of cut spoiler season short. We had a massive data dump yesterday on Friday with all of the card images in their regular forms being released all at once. Data leaks are unfortunate. They're harmful. They're not fun. They are a fact of life, unfortunately, in a digital world, and they are harmful to creators. They're potentially harmful to competitive balance. And, you know, as somebody who is making these videos and talking about Star Wars Unlimited and creating content, it's not fun to see that kind of thing happen, because it breaks a lot of the trust between the companies who are making games like FFG is and the community that are like me and many others much larger and smaller than me who are trying to have some fun with this, be creative in what we're doing, post things online. You know, some of us in the hopes that we get to spoil a card, get some not even some things from the company, but just get the opportunity to do that and to talk about this game in a meaningful way. And so it's very hurtful to see that kind of thing break up what has been a good run of spoiler seasons previously. I do think that FFG releasing the full set and getting that information out was the right move for competitive balance. It's tough, especially if you think that it's tough to think that even if they had gone through with spoiler season as planned, that some of the people who are major creators do have attachments to major teams. And so, you know, they're getting their product, they're pulling it open, they're shooting their videos, they're doing things like that. They're not breaking embargo, they're not doing things ahead of schedule, and they're staying entirely by the book, except that now they have access to the cards that maybe other people haven't seen a few days to a week in advance, and have the opportunity to play test with them and to kind of figure out what's going on. Why is that important? Well, let's talk about the Star Wars CCG, the Decipher product, the 1998 World Championship, also known as the Operative Championship. That game involved, you played two decks, you played light and dark, and so a match consisted of a player playing one side and then the other, and looking at differential between how big did you win the games. At the end of 1998, Decipher released the largest of the expansions that they would wind up having with that game. Special Edition came out, and Special Edition did something kind of resetting the board. The first set had been 324 cards, somewhere in that order. All the others had been in the 150 to 180 range. And then you got Special Edition. And Special Edition did something brand new, which is to say that it put out objective cards, something that had not existed in the game previously. And those objective cards, although they were a part of your total, they were something that you put on the table at the beginning. They let you put down sometimes multiple locations, which was not necessarily a thing that the game did prior to that. And they gave you a set of advantages based on completing an objective. And in a game that very rarely featured more than a couple copies of any particular card, and had decks that were incredibly toolboxing. Uh, the operative championship became one of these things where people would go around at night at the championship trying to scavenge and trade for and gather as many different operatives from a single planet as they could, because a particular objective was better than the others, and it had a light side and a dark side version. And if you played with those operative decks, you just won. And that was the way that championship played out. The winning deck had 20 operatives in it, so a third of the deck space was devoted entirely to a card and type that would wind up being incredibly changed over the next couple of months from the game. We have seen in Star Wars Unlimited the just explosive power that Boba Fett had in his early days before that card was suspended. With Jump to Lightspeed, we saw the suspension of Jango Fett very early, just because we saw exactly how competitively unbalanced that deck became. And I do fear a little bit for the idea that we are going to see a release of a set 2 weeks prior, and then legal for a major galactic championship. That said, it's the right move to full release that set right now, to give all players a more level playing field, to let them start play testing with things that are going to be product that are legal and live when the championship comes around. And it's the right move to do. Let's move on. Legendaries in Star Wars Unlimited. There was a change between the original 3 sets and Jump to Lightspeed. The original 16 per set. Officially, it was about 1 per 8 packs, about 3 per box. You got a little bit more than that between the hyperspace and the foils. You would occasionally get an extra legendary shoved in there. 48 in the playset, which is to say 3 of each, though some of them were much less playable. And if you got a bad run and you got 7 of Black 1, you were just out of luck. Provided that you hit a good rotation, which collation in those sets was particularly bad, you could theoretically hit your playset in just under 16 boxes, which is not wonderful, but that would get you playsets of basically everything, and usually dual playsets of several of your rares. So it's a decent amount of things, but it's also quite a lot of product. Jump to Lightspeed shifted to 20 legendaries per set. Moved down a couple of rares, moved up a couple of commons, uncommons. But officially, you got about 1 per 5 packs, so roughly 5 per box. But that jumps the playset up to 60. But the math change in the amount of legendaries per pack, 1/5 per pack, made your playset distribution, if you got perfect distribution, about 12 boxes instead of 16. This is an improvement, and keep in mind that if you got extras floating around in the foil and hyperspace spots, or if you picked up packs of Carbonite, which often had a much higher distribution, then you got several over the allotted pretty quickly. In Star Wars Unlimited, Legendary is not exclusive to the power of a card. So just the numbers, health, and power that are on it do not make a card legendary. It's the complexity, the degree to which the card interacts with the game. That said, there are several legendaries that are practically unusable. Annihilator looks like a lot of fun. It's in several decks, but it's rarely something that sees the field. Same thing with Finalizer, or with, I know people have used it before, but with Endless Legions, or Black 1, which we mentioned earlier. Several of these cards are very, very difficult to put into use, and as a result see little to no competitive play. And that makes them somewhat disappointing at times, because there are spots where I've picked up a legendary in a pack and, I could have gotten a better rare. And so while complexity is good, you want legendaries that have the kind of balance of power to them that meet that criteria. I think we did a little bit better in this set, but let's go ahead and go through them. The first two, we're going to go 4 per slide, then we'll condense down as we go. All right, ranks 20 through 17. The Mythosaur, that's rank 20 for me. A 9 cost 10/10 shielded unit. The good thing is the Mythosaur protects itself from being exhausted or returned to hand because it comes out shielded. But the first thing that attacks it, you can now bounce it, you can now exhaust it, you can do whatever it is you need to do. Friendly leaders gain the Mandalorian trait. Mandalorian's not a huge tribe right now. It'd be nice, I guess, if you're swinging a Darksaber around to be able to buff your leader, but you're also talking about something that came in on 9. And so this is also very much a win more, because if your leader is still on the board at 9, you're probably doing pretty well in the game. 19, the Supremacy, kind of the same thing. This is a win more card. We're looking at a 12 cost 12/12 ship that makes all other vehicles +6/+6, all of the friendly vehicles. That's gigantic. That has ambush to it, which is nice, but it does not have overwhelm, which most of the other big capital ships do. But that 12 cost is just so difficult to get around, because we can bring it down to 10 in Piet, and 10's a reasonable thing. We get Devastator on the field all the time, but we don't have triple Dark Raid to bring that down even further. There's not a great way to discount in that ship beyond it. And so just getting 212 resources to put Supremacy down, again, by the time that you're there, you've probably put down a Devastator. You might have put down your second one. You might have put down an Avenger or another big, powerful ship at this point. And now what are you doing? You're winning more. And that's just, all right. Zuckuss at 18. Zuckuss lost the Underworld trait, which I thought was particularly useful for him. And he picked up Force, but he also picked up a second Cunning icon. And that double Cunning, bringing him still at a 5 cost, is pretty detrimental in my mind. Really, there's only one place that I've found that I've even attempted to fit this, and that is to say, to put him in a double yellow set 1 Thrawn, where I know what card is on top of my opponent's deck, because then he's an 8/7, and he becomes a little bit more of a lightning rod. And attacking into a 4/7 is not a wonderful thing to have to do. There's a pretty good chance that he's going to be able to get off at least an attack, and if he knows what is coming, then knows what's coming, is able to discard it, is able to get that 4, that +4/+0, then he can have some pretty nice turns. He also has the Force trait, which is much more beneficial in this set. So there's a lot of things that he can do, but I think that losing Underworld there is difficult for him. Oppo at 17. 3/5 body for 3. Great. That's what we expect. That's right on par with that cost. A 3/5 body that gains ambush when another friendly unit has ambush. Well, that sounds cool. Except at 3, most of the ambush units that are a 2 are probably gone. They use that up pretty quickly. There's a few that have the possibility of sticking around. The new yellow 1/4 ambusher for 2, but the problem is that this is double green. And so playing this at 5, I'm much less excited about, because a 5 cost 3/5 that just gained another trait. Granted, it can gain any trait, but that is a 3/5 for 5 is unexciting. 16 through 13. 16, the Legacy Run. I'm not thrilled about putting a 5 cost 3/3 on the table. But being able to bring it in a way that I know it's going to be defeated, and then divide 6 damage among enemy units, yeah, that's got the complexity that we need of a legendary. That's pretty good, but it's not wonderful. And it's in a spot where it doesn't have ambush. It doesn't have a lot of different things that can make it directly impactful with the game. You have to wait until it's defeated. And, if your opponent just doesn't have a lot of space challenge out there for it, then that can, it can sit there and tick for 3, but it's not going to blow through units. So there's, it's the legacy run. Darth Malik came in at 15 for me, and the reason Malik is at 15 here is because of his text. He is obviously meant to play with Revan, and with Revan, that's great, being able to drop out a 4/7 for 5 that comes in ready. But you have to control a Sith leader unit in order to do that, and so you really have to sequence that turn correctly. You have to play Revan first, have Revan survive any kind of attempt to remove him, and then play Malik to get him ready. Same thing with any of the other Sith leaders. They have to be on the board first, and that is detrimental to kind of his ability. 4/7 for 5, I'm not mad at, and 4/7 for 5 with Overwhelm, with the idea that we could put a lightsaber on him or do something else like that and kind of suit him up to make him a much bigger body is quite nice. But being tied as he is to having a leader unit on the table is troubling. Grogu at 14. This hidden mechanic is nice. A 1/6 is not. Being heroism only, this is a kind of cool target to smuggle in with Han. You can put him out as your turn 1 play, be able to deal 2 damage to another unit as you come in. He's difficult to remove because of that 6 health, and being able to heal himself or other units. So, he's a good clock to have for that deck, because you can bring out your turn 3 or your turn 2 play, have a 4-cost unit that you bring in for 3, deal 2 damage to it, heal 2 damage from it, deal 2 damage to your opponent. So this is a great play in very limited circumstance, and the limited circumstance is what limits its ranking. Similar with Always 2. I love the design of this card. 2 friendly Sith units, give them 2 shield tokens and 2 experience, so really bolster those 2 units, and then defeat everything else that's friendly. Now, granted, if 2 Sith units is all that's on the table for you at this time, that's huge. If you play this in a blue-yellow deck and you're playing Sith in the right way, and you can manage to get, now there are 2 of them out or something like that, so that you have a couple of Sith units on the table at once, and then pow, everything else is, oh wait, I didn't have anything else. These 2 are now shielded and superpowered, and that's great. But you have to defeat all of your own units if you're doing it later. And it's just one of those that there's enough ways to kind of strip off shields, to strip off tokens, to strip off experience, that especially will become more power or more prominent in this set, because we have a lot of pilots now that are upgrades. We have a lot of upgrades and lightsabers in this set. And so it's more likely that we're going to see the inclusion of some upgrade hate. And that just nullifies at least 1, if not 2, of those units' bonuses. And you've paid for and potentially defeated your other units for nothing. Plus, the if you do on this, choose 2 friendly Sith units. If you do, you must have 2 friendly Sith units in order for this to take effect. You cannot have just 1 on the table, play this, and get your experience tokens and shields. You must play it with 2. All right. Numbers 12 and 10. I put Marshawn Rowe at 12. I love the design of this card. I love the idea. Having the Nile come into this set and having them be kind of a part of what we're developing. I love it. I've enjoyed the High Republic books. I think Marshawn Rowe is a cool character from there, and mechanically doubling every friendly unit's raid. Wow, that is a huge amount of power. But he has no protection here, and he is absolutely going to be a lightning rod. So, almost consider him with Sentinel, because your opponent is going to have to work to remove him immediately. Um, you know, expect that they're going to crash some units into your units if they've got raid. Beat up your units while they are attacking smaller, and then having something ready for Marshal and Row if they are sitting down and facing you, and you've got yellow villainy with raid. Constructed lightsaber. The degree to which we will see targeted removal of upgrades limits my ranking of upgrades across the board. I like this better than some of the other things because it is cheaper, it is diverse. We have a huge amount of force units. I can give this to any of them, and it's a nicely powered upgrade at a +2, +3 for its cost, and giving a upgraded ability along with it is quite nice. Heroic units get restore to, villainy units get raid to, and if you're a non-heroic, non-villainy unit, then you get Sentinel. This is a big boost, and it's nice design, but again, the ability of just general upgrade hate to remove it causes it to fall to 11 for me. All right, now the one at a times. At number 10, we have the Father. The reason he's at number 10 is this 8 cost. He's a 5/10 force, absolute neutral. And the design of that is great. This is the Mortis God's arc, and that is the right representation for the Father. And when you use the force, deal 1 damage to this unit, and the force is with you, so allowing you to give back to just gain back your force token passively, just at the expense of 1 damage to a unit that had 10 health, is great design. I don't know exactly how much I'll be using the force and how much dependence I will have on this once we talk about 8 cost to say that I need to do this that high. But if using the force is a huge thing and your deck revolves around doing it multiple times in a turn, getting this guy on the table is going to be gigantic. And that's a nice complex card. Sure, we'll stick him in at a legendary. He falls in at number 10. Number 9 for me is the Grand Inquisitor. I like that he's playing with the hidden mechanic. I love that he's coming out at that 3 cost. He has a big improvement on Fifth Brother, who was a 2/4 that gained raid by doing damage to himself. Hidden mechanic here is great. Giving each other friendly Inquisitor hidden is quite nice, because if this guy sticks at all, you throw down another Inquisitor on the next turn and they can't attack it. And so there's a lot of good going on with this. He's fun in Inquisitor decks because, you can run him with the Grand Inquisitor as a leader, and you can go ahead and ready him on the turn that he's in. They can't attack into him and get rid of him. Go ahead and swing for 4, and a 4/2 body at 3 is still pretty good. So there's a lot of nice here, and this is just well designed. The reason it falls behind HK47, who comes in at 8 for me, HK47, when an enemy unit is defeated, deal a damage to the controller's base. So every time that you watch another unit go away, 1 to base. And this is really nice on a 2-drop that has 4 health. He's a Sith droid, so you can do things to him that require Sith, and there are some bonuses to droid in this set. So there's a lot of ways that you can kind of help maintain him and make him a little bigger. But this is a good spot for him. He falls at number 8 for me. Number 7, this was kind of a surprise for me. Anakin Skywalker. I loved this guy when he was revealed. I'm very happy to see, and I really am interested to see what happens with his prestige variant, because the Champions of Mortis, the Mortis arc for the Star Wars Clone Wars was fabulous. And we get to see Anakin kind of at the height of recognizing his power, not at its peak, but still at the recognition of who he is. And this is so well designed from that point, because this is Spark of Rebellion Darth Vader stats at a 5/7 for one less cost. This is Luke Skywalker's text, where he gives something -3/-3. And if you manage to do something where you are playing dark and light, he can give the full -6/-6. So he has an immediate when played ability, and he has big stats behind a smaller cost. This is a great thing, especially for things like the Kira decks. The Kira deck did not have a good fit at 6. And in this set, they got 2. I think this is not the better of those 2, but they got 2 of them. And this falls to number 7 for me. Number 6, Bendu. The reason Bendu is here above Anakin Skywalker, even though he is out later and is not as impactful on his deploy, is that this is a huge, huge closer, especially when we're talking about a green Han deck, Han 2, green Han deck, or really any color, because Han is already red. But green especially would allow you to put Malakili out with him and not do 3 damage to your own units. But his on attack is gigantic, being able to do 3 damage to each other unit. And so he's stomping around clearing the whole board. And if Malakili is there, then your opponents are just taking 3 damage to everything. It is an on attack ability. I particularly love the card Hotshot Maneuver. And so this synergizes with that. There are plenty of ways, and I put up a video just very briefly about a Han 2 green deck, really focusing on getting Bendu out. There are ways that I can do that in game turn 4, and that's just silly, because being able to make that happen is just disgustingly powerful. He's a 10/10. If Han makes him a 10/8, and your opponent has to burn whatever removal they have, and you come back the next turn with a Crate Dragon, that's a game loss. That's just hard to get around. And so he comes in at number 6 for me. Number 5, and I could have flipped these. I decided to go this way because Syndralig, same cost, but when you play him, you can play a lightsaber for free on him. And if you do, ready him, which means that Bendu, you've got to wait a turn for your 10 whatever. He comes in order to be able to attack with him. With Syndralig, there's a good chance that you're going to be able to attack for 7 or 8 this turn, and that you're going to have a 8 or greater health unit that's on the table, that was able to go ahead and take a swing. And there are plenty of things that you can do. If you have the constructed lightsaber, that's a 7/9. That's a restore 2 that came in and readied. So a pretty powerful thing to be able to do. Again, 8 cost here is kind of the limiting factor, and we're going to see that as well coming up with Yoda, who came in at number 4. 8 cost kind of limiting. He has a very nice when played, because if you have a Force token, you play Yoda and you heal 5 from your base. Also, being able to deal damage when you use the Force means that you're able to really power up what's happening with your Force use. And if your deck synergizes with that well, every time you use the Force, you're able to ping a unit for twice the number of units, for damage equal to twice the number of units you control. This is just a nice, powerful ability. He's a 5/9, so we finally got a Yoda with a really big body behind him. He's got his own lightsaber in this set. He can use any of the others and become a just huge wall. That's also useful with some of the cards that do damage based on the remaining health of a unit. And so, a lot of power here. The 8 cost has him at number 4. Number 3, even though he's 7 cost, is Qui-Gon Jinn. We already had a lot of ambush in yellow. This is one of the better ambush units that we've got. Being able to come in, defeat a unit. If he comes in and defeats a ready unit, which 7 is going to do in a lot of cases, and even if he takes his 5 back, he can essentially remove another unit. And the opponent has to decide whether they're going to put that unit top or bottom of the deck. That also means that if they have an upgraded unit sitting around, he can remove that, and that will get rid of the unit and defeat the upgrades. So there's a lot of things that Qui-Gon Jinn can do, and this is a very powerful ability, a very well done card. This is number 3 for me. That leaves only a couple, and at number 2 I have Leia Organa. Why do I have that here? This seems pretty high for something that doesn't ready. Because she does a couple of things that are incredible in certain situations. Number 1, she's a 5 cost. Now, it's going to be hard to ECL something and be able to continue using the Force. So we'll have to work around that a little bit, but there are plenty of ways that we can gain a Force token besides bases. If we bring her in, we can also use cards like Dogfight, or we can use Nemean Strike to swing with a unit that is not ready. And a 5/5 for 5 in space is not a bad place to be. But this action to be able to use the Force and move her to the ground arena where she is able to ready, but it sets up a mini unity of purpose to make each friendly heroic unit +2/+2 for this phase. Makes her something that my opponents have to go and defeat, and hopefully, for them, they're hoping they can manage to do that while she is out in space. But timed right, this is a great card to be able to put her out there, really beef up some of your units, and then leave behind this is unity of purpose, and it leaves behind a 5/5. A little less power in the front end, but leaves behind a big unit in the back end. And so this came in for me at number 2. Which leaves the obvious choice at number 1, Darth Vader. I said with Anakin Skywalker that one of the things Kira lacks, and one of the things that Villainy Blue was kind of lacking in, was a 6 cost unit that could make some impact on the board and could do something. Wow, did we get a 6 cost unit? 5/6, a little smaller than the other Darth Vader units that we've had so far. However, anytime that I can put a shield token on something, so if I combo this with Lom Pike and stick a shield token on an enemy unit, that text does not read arena. That text says if that is a unit that is shielded, defeat it. And so, this is a great hit for a mono blue. This is a great hit for anything that is playing Villainy Blue, because you can effectively compete in an arena that you're not in by sticking a shield token on one of their units, defeating that unit when you just attack. So Darth Vader has a huge ability, a nice big body, and comes in at number 1 for me in the Legends of the Force legendaries. So let me know what you think. Hit me in the comments. We'll come back. We'll take a look in a couple of days at some of the rares and sort of start working our way through. I'll also do a video in the next week or so about how you can win your pre-release with the Legends of the Force, what you're looking for in pre-release kits, and how to build some of those decks in ways that you are able to compete in those events. Till next time, see you around.